Alright, well first off let me apologize, I've got a bit of a cold, so voiceover may not be as nice as it could be, but I'll try to enunciate as best I can. So this is the anti-reverse mechanism for a Shimano spinning reel. This one in particular is from a Shimano Sahara 1000. Says no grease, important on there. So a lot of times these get fouled, you'll just be told to replace them. In fact, when I tried to find instructions on how to put this back together, I couldn't find any videos at all, and everything that I saw just said replace it, and it's really not that difficult. So I'll walk you through putting it back together. This is fully disassembled. The first thing to note is there's a cutout in the bottom of the cover. This is the bottom cover for the anti-reverse mechanism. We're going to have to orient the rest of the parts to that opening, because that's where the switch for the anti-reverse on the reel connects through. So first up, take these two parts here, and you'll note that there's a cutout here and a similar cutout on, try to get it so you can see it, on this piece right here. Let me bring this in here. Right here. You have to line those two up. Alright. And this will only go on one way. So you can see I've got the notch in the metal and the notch in the plastic aligned similarly. And this notch is what is going to engage with the anti-reverse lever on the reel. So these pieces will align. The notch that I mentioned goes in towards the slot down here. Okay, so now this can pivot slightly. And you see on the bottom that it's this notch here is accessible from this hole in the bottom cover. Now the next step is to reinstall the roller bearings into place. It's easiest with a pair of tweezers. And you'll see how on this plastic part there's a small semicircular groove here that the roller bearings can fit into nicely. You're going to want to seat those bearings up against that groove. Now here comes what's probably the most tricky part. It's not that tricky, but probably the part that gets most people to just replace this instead of put it back together. To reinstall the springs, you'll take them, there's a, let's see if I can get this to focus here. There's a long and a short tag end to each of these springs. And you're going to want to take, I'll show you the short end is much shorter. So you want to take it by the short end in the tweezers. Let me just focus back on the piece. And there's 6 posts that go around. Those drop so that the long part goes in between the roller bearing and the plastic support, and the short part sticks out a bit on the side of the bearing. And you'll just repeat this all the way around. Now that the springs are reinstalled, the next part to go on is the cam plate. You'll see that it has nubs around the outside, but the two are closer together. Those two match up with a section on the bottom cover, and it only can install one way. And the indentation must be facing down. It just drops in place when it's properly aligned. Next is the top cover, and again you can note the orientation by looking underneath, and you'll see that there's a spot with the two nubs closer together, and that will again align with the two closer nubs. When installing this, make sure you get the felt washer back in place. It should be able to just friction fit during installation. Now, once this goes on, you're going to put it in place and then turn it maybe 15 degrees clockwise. And what that will do is that will compress all of these springs around the whole thing once it's installed. So I'm noting the location of my two closer nubs here and on the piece. And you can see the tag edges of the spring sticking out here, here, here. So to cinch this down and lock this in place, you rotate the black top cover very slightly, and that compresses all of those springs, as well as finally lining up all of the screw holes. Just one thing to note now, if you try to pick this up without putting the screws together, the springs will go everywhere, so don't do that. You should be able to see just on the plastic which screws are which, but this, and this were where the main screws were installed to hold this down onto the reel, and this other hole is just a through hole. This and this, the two holes that you can't see through, are the two holes that you reinstall the screws to hold the anti-reverse together. Pardon my hand. So now that this is reassembled, you can test it by grabbing this piece from the rest of your reel, drop that into the middle here with the, I'll show you again, the large side. There's a larger side and a smaller side. With the large side facing up, drop this into your bearing, and then you should be able to test the anti-reverse. And you can feel, that it's not allowing it to spin backwards, but it is going forwards. And if you flip this, you can go either direction, but that is under spring tension, so you have to hold this if you want to go backwards. But that's it, fully assembled. Not that hard to do. Back together, saves you 20 bucks. I don't know how much these cost, but I wasn't about to just pay for something I could just put back together myself. Hope this helps.